With all due respect, what the hell have we done? A couple No Kings protests? A Target boycott? We haven't done a damn thing. I don't think we saw the same video. This is in regards to a video that Tad Strummer did a while back. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Tad, and I think his contributions and his historical perspective in this conversation around how we resist fascism in a successful way are absolutely important. But Jim, this is a terrible take. This is a terrible take, my dude. If you are unaware of all of the ways that millions and millions of Americans are resisting consistently in a sustained manner on a daily basis, then I encourage you to go join your local grassroots group and find out what people are doing. This is a complete mischaracterization of what resistance looks like in the US. If all you are aware of is a series of the largest protests in the history of the United States and a concerted Target boycott, then you're not even seeing the tip of the iceberg, much less everything going on under the surface. What a terribly dismissive and insincere take when it comes to the ways that millions and millions and millions of Americans are standing up against fascism. Just because you are ignorant of the ways that people are resisting, that doesn't mean that people aren't standing up and fighting back. And I would argue it is incumbent on you to go and find out what people are doing to resist, to go and plug yourself in and get involved in that good work instead of sitting back and being like, other people aren't doing enough. I'm not seeing other people do enough from my position on my sofa, from, looking on my phone. So I think that nothing is happening. I get real frustrated with this take. And I am somebody who talks consistently about how we aren't doing enough. Right? There's a lot more that we need to be doing, and we need to be strategizing for, organizing for, and getting ready to implement. And unfortunately, the reality of the situation is some of the really big, heavy lifts that we need to do, there simply is not the people power there yet. There simply are not enough people who are involved in that work, and we have not spent enough time strategizing and organizing. I know I'm somebody who wants a general strike, y'all. I think that would be highly, highly effective. Even if it was just like all our teachers or all the major unions, and we could all get behind those folks and support them. And again, I'm not asking for something our family is not willing to do. My spouse is a public school teacher, and he's like, let's go. Let's stop this shit. He sees how his students are being actively harmed by the regime consistently in multiple ways, like a whole laundry list of ways on a daily basis. His students are suffering. But laying the groundwork for a general strike is incredibly complicated, and it involves the support of millions and millions of people. It is something that takes a tremendous amount of coordination and organization. That's why we're seeing large unions who, at the beginning of this year, we're talking about planning for a strike in 2028 because they understand the amount of legwork and the amount of preparation that has to go into it. Are there a lot of people in the United States who are not actively resisting, who have their heads in the sand and are like, this is too stressful, I'm just going to check out? Yeah, absolutely. Are there a lot of people who are truly ignorant of how bad it is? Yep. And when they look at corporate legacy media downplaying what's happening and spinning propaganda for the regime, when they look at their Democratic establishment elected officials, right, like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who are like, hey guys, this is politics as usual. We're just going to vote them out in the midterms. It's going to be real bad for a while. We're going to let the Republicans tank themselves, and then we're going to vote them out in the midterms. And they see establishment corporate Democrats who are failing to meet the moment and failing to accurately describe what is happening. Like, this is not politics as usual. This is not a just vote them out in the midterms. This is the rapid erosion of our democracy and the fact that the regime is trying to take away our rights. And will we have free and fair elections in 2026? We'll have elections. They'll be like absolutely steeped in voter suppression. Look at the gerrymandering in Texas. Look at the way that Donald Trump is trying to do away with vote by mail. He does not have the constitutional authority to do that. The states control elections, but he's still talking on Fox News multiple times this past week about how he thinks vote by mail is like rigged and dangerous. Motherfucker, you vote by mail. Donald Trump, you vote by mail. Vote by mail is incredibly safe. What he knows is that if he can try to do away with vote by mail and make people have to go to the polls, they might not be able to get time off work. They might not have hours and hours and hours to stand in long lines. And also, he wants to have the military there to intimidate them. He wants to have the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers there to intimidate people and prevent them from exercising their constitutional right to cast a vote. Autocrats rarely cancel elections, y'all. It's just that they suppress the vote, and that way they can manipulate the outcome. Or if they lose, they go ahead and say the election was rigged and they declare victory anyway. And we see far too many establishment Democratic politicians who are failing not only to they themselves understand what is happening, they are foolishly believing that this is just politics as usual, but then they are communicating that absolute nonsense to their constituents of like, let's just write it out, guys, we'll fix it in the midterms. Just wait till 2026 and vote back in your favorite corporate APAC Democrat who's been pretty consistently voting with the Republicans since, January. Part of the reason so many people are not resisting in the way you would like them to, Jim, or the way I would like them to, is because they truly are ignorant and they are listening to people in power who are telling them the wrong things. And then there's an awful lot of people who are just very overwhelmed and very checked out. One of the things that Ezra from Indivisible says in most of our Thursday online meetings, one of the Zooms I had today, is that most Americans are not like politics nerds. Most Americans don't spend all their time in the weeds, nerding out over policy and being like super involved with what the regime is doing. Most Americans vote on vibes. Most Americans assess politics by what's happening in their community, what their neighbor says, what their pastor says, and what their local politicians are saying. So a lot of Americans need to get educated. A lot of Americans need to have the information, accurate information brought to them because they're not really that interested in politics. And they've been pretty jaded and cynical about American politics from both Republicans and Democrats for years. A lot of the necessary things that have to happen for us to stop the fascists just require more people power. We need more people to get plugged in, not just to show up to a protest, although that is important, but then to get onboarded and involved in organization and more sustained resistance tactics. But this right here, like, we haven't done a damn thing. I'm sorry, Jim, that's complete and utter bullshit. So much of the work of resisting fascism is not something big and sexy and in public. It's regular, ordinary people doing things behind the scenes that you don't know about. Contacting their college and saying, I'm not giving you another goddamn penny as long as you are scrubbing your DEI policy and betraying your trans students, your trans athletes, because you're afraid of the regime. It's contacting Disney and saying, fuck you for firing Jimmy Kimmel. I want a refund on my Disney Plus. I am absolutely canceling my Hulu subscription. I will never give you another dollar as long as you are collaborating with fascism. We are living in an oligarchy, in a would-be authoritarian state. It's still a capitalistic state. Money is the language that most of these fuckers speak. So organized economic resistance, incredibly, incredibly important. And there are people all over the country who are trying to figure out how to do that more and more. And I don't want to downplay the protests that are also happening. There are protests every single day all over the United States. And if you don't hear about them, Jim, it's because corporate legacy media doesn't want to publicize them. There are people protesting every single day. Today, in fact, there are protests in Pennsylvania at Citizens Bank, which is the bank that does business with Geo Group and Core Civic, which are the private, well, I guess they're publicly traded corporations that run ICE detention facilities and make all kinds of money from our taxpayer dollars terrorizing immigrants. There are people right now protesting at that bank. The work of eroding the pillars of support under fascism, all of the businesses, institutions that are lending their support or are not standing up against fascism, that is really important work and it doesn't make the headlines. It's not sexy. It's those small acts of people chipping away day after day after day. For you to dismiss the very good work, the sacrifices that people are making consistently because you are ignorant that those things are happening. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Are you frustrated that we haven't stopped the fascists yet? Yeah, I'm also frustrated. So get to work in stopping the fascists instead of telling other people they aren't doing enough and that you don't think they've done a damned thing. You get involved, find out what people are doing and join them in that effort. Because there are some big levers that we're going to need to pull real soon, and we have to build the people power to be able to flex that muscle and pull the lever. So we need all folks on board. We need everybody involved in organizing in small and big acts of resistance. Everyone is going to have to take on a measure of personal risk in order to stop fascism. But acting like there aren't already millions and millions of people engaged in sustained resistance, trying to recruit new people to the resistance movement, expanding the ways that we can all push back against fascism, what you're doing here is a tremendous disservice to your fellow Americans. And honestly, it's doing the work of the regime, trying to minimize the size and efficacy of the resistance. I really encourage you to educate yourself. Because this vibe, it ain't it. Educate yourself and get to work and stop trying to erase the work that your fellow Americans are doing.